Hi, welcome to Terror to Teller Living, and I have Alyssa Marshall here with Honeydew Goods. And tell me what eco-conscious means to you, Alyssa.
Hello, thanks for having me. Eco-conscious to me means making daily choices that are easy, that are sustainable. So, like something that you could actually do all the time, and that only help improve the planet and not make the planet worse. So that can be anything from like for me and for my brand, it's is it something that you can use at least 50% of the time so that it becomes not so guilt inducing, but that is having a substantial impact on the planet. So, like our first product that we released are these awesome double stitched organic cotton produce bags. I should have grabbed some to show you, but they're really great. And they're not like the tote bags that you get from like all the people. They're like the ones for like your avocados and your apples and stuff. And the reason that we decided to do that because I have a bunch of those huge totes. You know, I shop at Aldi or Trader Joe's and they give you a bunch. But then I was like grabbing avocados and stuff and like still having to grab those really flimsy plastic bags. And so as I was trying to figure out where I wanted to line up, I knew I wanted to do something environmental, what that would look like. I had like gotten groceries and I was like, oh my gosh, I have like 50 produce bags here. Um, which I'll share why we eat a lot of vegetables, but I'll share that there's a deeper part to that for our story. But as I was kind of looking at that, I was like, this is something that people can do. Like we can easily eliminate the plastic we use from grocery stores, and it doesn't have to be stressful. Because I think the problem is being eco-conscious is one thing where you like recognize that we need to care for our planet and what we do and what we buy and how we spend our money and what companies we support. But it it can't just all be good thoughts. Like having good thoughts and good vibes towards things isn't going to solve our problem. It
Right.
has to do with our individual actions. And the problem is that there's so much noise out in the world right now about, hey, do this, hey, do that. Did you know you can make your own lettuce in a glass on your windowsill? Like there's all these things that sound really cool, but then when you actually try and sustain them over time, it becomes overwhelming because you actually have a life to live as well. And I'm a stay-at-home mom and I'm running a business and I have 3 children and my husband works from home. So it's not like I have all the time in the world to do all these really fun, crunchy things and like save the planet. So it's really important to me that being eco-conscious and making eco-conscious choices is something that's sustainable. So with the produce bags, if you were to use them every single time you go to the grocery store, just one person can eliminate over 200 plastic bags per year.
Yeah.
Um, if you only do that half the time, you're still eliminating 100 bags. And for one person, that might not, that's like, I mean, I guess that's kind of significant. But if 20 people do that, you're eliminating thousands of plastic bags.
Right.
And even if only half of you do that, you're still eliminating over 1,200 plastic bags. And that's just like a small community doing that. So with our release of our product, I did the math recently as I was kind of like winding up 2020. And um, based off of how many sets of bags we've sold, we've helped people eliminate over 36,000 plastic bags from use. And even if they only use those half the time, that's still 18,000 bags. Like
Yeah.
that's significant.
That's super
Um,
exciting.
yeah. So that's kind of why Honeydew exists, is to be like, hey, your life is busy. You probably have kids. You're managing a billion things and you care about the planet, but you don't know where to start. And a lot of the things that are out there are unsustainable and it's kind of noisy. You don't know what the right place is to start. And also Amazon is great and you get everything in 2 days. So like it almost feels like anathema to like be eco-conscious and shop it on Amazon at the same time. And I sell all my products on Amazon.
Yeah.
Um,
I will
so
put the
my,
links for them in the
oh, that
comments.
would be great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
for
Yeah.
sure.
So I kind of just was like, if I can do this half the time and give myself grace that at least half the time I'm doing something and I have little ones, then what they're seeing me do half the time will become natural for them so that when they're adults and they're making their own choices, it becomes, old hat for them. Like
Mhm.
they already do bring all of those things because that's just how they were brought up, instead of for us adults where we're having to kind of change the patterns of our predecessors and learn like, oh, their habits weren't all sustainable. We need to change that tide now. And if our generation can do that, then the next generation will be able to do so much more because they've just been like, that's been life for them.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a little about that. As far as Honeydew goes, our story with starting Honeydew, my husband and I, he's always worked from home, and he works as a chief creative officer for a small philanthropic company, and he's my designer. Everything you see that's Honeydew and design and brand, like his job is branding for big companies. And so I really lucked out on branding
Yeah.
because it's not me who's doing that. It's all him. And I just pay him in love. So it works really, really well. But our story is that our oldest, so we have 3 daughters, and our oldest, who's now 8.5, got cancer in 2018 at the beginning of the year. When we were planning on moving overseas and all these things, we found a tumor in her arm. And obviously, it was atrocious and hard. And so she had a very aggressive type of cancer called Ewing sarcoma, which is extremely rare. Only about 200 children a year get it. So there's not a lot of research on it. There are not a lot of resources, and all of the treatment that's done for pediatric cancers in general are over 25 to 30 years old because it's just not financially sustainable for pharmaceutical companies to develop drugs that save children's lives because there's so few of them. And, it's a little taboo to try new drugs on children.
Yeah.
So we lived literally all of 2018. We spent more nights in the hospital than we did at home. And we really had to care for her diet. And while we had like the greatest oncology team in the world, a lot of their suggestions to us for our daughter's health was like, just feed her calories. Like she just needs calories because chemo depletes your body. It wipes out her immune system. And the weaker she is, the harder it will be for her to fight back and regain her white blood cells to fight the next time. So just feed her calories. The problem with that is that we could notice a difference in her if we just fed her like cake and chips and like high calorie foods that didn't actually do anything for her gut, versus if we didn't really think so much about the calories, but we're like, we need to eat nutritionally well. So lots of produce, lots of lean meats. And she's always been that way. She's always been like a vegetable eater. I do not take the credit for this whatsoever, but she's always loved like salad and stuff. And we noticed a clear shift after we decided to care deeply about her gut health, that her recovery after chemo treatments would be a lot faster than some of our little friends who were not caring as much about their gut health. So they were often inpatient more frequently because they got fevers. And when you have a fever and you're a kid, you have to go into the hospital when you have cancer, regardless of if it's like just because you have no blood versus like you have the flu.
Yeah.
So it kind of led us on this journey. We've already always been fairly health conscious, but it led us on a greater journey of like, what are we putting in our house? What are we putting on our bodies? What are we putting in our bodies? Because when your child gets a death sentence, you kind of have to, like, our oncologist was like, you caught it when you were going to catch it. It's nobody's fault. You didn't miss something. But inevitably as parents, you're like, does my house have black mold? Did I, like by giving her vaccines, did she get cancer? Like you go down the whole, every single possible thing that you could possibly think could cause it,
Right.
that you possibly missed. And that's natural and normal. But one thing that we can control is what we eat and then how we treat the planet. And I think that those will have a marked difference on our own personal health as well. Just by having plants in your home, you increase your oxygen levels and your ability to breathe clean air. Like it's simple. It's a super, super simple thing. I just have to water these guys. I got all ones that you don't have to water frequently so
Yeah.
that I can't kill them.
Yeah.
But like, it's just a quick thing that you can do in your home. So when Amelie finished treatment and she did extremely well, she's had several surgeries. There's always surgery on the table for her, but she's super healthy and thriving and bouncy. And we just kind of were like, okay, we know we need to live a better life. That was inherent within what we learned. But then on the other side of it was like, we're also always going to have medical bills
Mhm,
because children have scans more than adults do to
mhm.
make sure that they're cancer free. Um, and their rate of relapse is quite high. So we're always in getting testing done and just making sure things are good. Therefore, we're always meeting our max every single year. And you can do a GoFundMe once or twice for that.
Yeah.
But it's just, we were like, our reality now is that any extra cash we have goes towards medical bills. We've always wanted to start a business together. Now seems like a good time to do that. And we have a bit of space to do that in. I obviously love to talk and I
Yeah.
really like to write. And I like to educate. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. And so I really love to empower other people. I love to share the knowledge that I learn. I dive deep when I dive into something. Um, and this was kind of naturally where we already were. So we were like, let's start a company that helps other busy families who want to do the best they can for their family with the resources they have, but maybe feel just like really overwhelmed and don't even know where to start. Like,
Yeah.
let's do that. And we'll offer a couple products that help them make those steps and make it easy and make it family friendly. Um, but also don't like add any extra gray hairs to anybody's head at this point
Yeah.
because we don't need it, or make you lose sleep because we don't get that. And that's kind of how Honeydew was born. So we kind of landed it all last year, did some product discovery, product research, found the manufacturers that we wanted to use, found the quality of product we wanted to use, which was intense because there's a lot out there. But we were really intentional about the type of products that we use. And one of the things that we want is that every product we source either outlives its age so that it becomes like you can use it long enough that it doesn't impact landfills, and or that at its final stage of destruction, it doesn't add to a landfill. It'll biodegrade on its own,
Mhm.
or something like that. So that's kind of who we are. I think it'll be a year in March. So we're not even a
Oh,
year old yet. We're just little
oh, that's
babies. And it's
cool.
been a roller coaster.
Yeah, I love it. That's
So
so
that's
cool.
a really long elevator speech on who Honeydew Goods is.
That's so cool. Is your daughter, so she is now she's in remission then, right?
Yeah, so with kids it's a little bit different because the relapse rates are way different. So for the first 5 years, 5 to 7 years, depending on the cancer, they're considered NED, which means no evidence of disease.
Okay.
And then after that time, then they become like officially declared like cancer free or in full remission. So
Okay.
she's currently no evidence of disease, and it's been 2 years.
Okay.
So we're going into year 3 right now, which is encouraging. We have some surgeries and stuff just because of the way her body is growing around. Her cancer was in her arm.
Mhm.
And so they had to remove bones in her arm. So it's just kind of growing wonky. So we have to do a lot of adjustments on that for her as she gets older. But other than that, we're grateful. She's
Yeah.
extremely healthy and full of life. And
Oh,
she's like,
good.
she's 8, it's like such a
Yeah.
great time to be alive as an
Yeah.
8-year-old.
That's so beautiful. I'm so happy for you.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, so you're gonna grow the business too, and you mentioned bags. Do you have other products as well?
Yeah, so I have the organic cotton produce bags
Mhm.
that are awesome. And I have this beautiful jar, which I can show you in a sec, but I have this beautiful Boris. Let me grab one. Actually, I have one right here. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Off screen for a second. So
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
I've already started using my own, but it's this pretty little jar.
Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous.
Um, it's a borosilicate glass, which is a really high, it's a big glass. It's a hand blown glass jar,
Mhm.
and it has an acai wood lid with just a silicone, like a little silicone lip in it. And our little
Okay.
brand is on there, but there's no other writing to it. It's really lightweight. It's like, I don't know, less than 3 ounces, I think. I don't remember.
Okay.
I weighed it the other day, but um, we wanted something that is like eco-friendly. Again, at its end stage, it biodegrades. other than the silicone ring, but you can just snip that and throw it away because it should last you a really long time.
Mhm.
But we wanted people to feel like when you buy something that's eco-friendly, it doesn't have to look like paper mache. You
Yeah.
know, like a
Yeah.
lot of things will look like cardboardy or quirky or like something like that, which is fine. But um, I like a really modern, sleek home and just kind of like minimalistic lines. And I actually even thought about this one was because I have had this huge mason jar one.
Mhm.
I think I got it at Target or something like that. That's like, it feels like 5 pounds, and I have to like grab it by the hinge to like pull it out of the cabinet.
Mhm.
And it's just huge and bulky. And it fits a 5 pound bag of flour. And this also fits a 5 pound bag of flour, but it doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
And it's just so much more lightweight. And my girls and I love to bake with each other. And so they would, every time they like go to our cabinet to get the flour out, I'm just like, ooh. And now they can just easily grab this. I mean, I'm still terrified that they're going to drop it and break it, but less terrified because it doesn't weigh anything.
Yeah.
So with flour in it, it's a lot easier. And it's just a really pretty piece to display, like in your bathroom. Um, one of our friends bought it for her tattoo shop to put her razors in.
Yeah.
She was like, I just need a place to place my sponges and my razors. And I was like, great, it'll work. I mean, it's a jar. Like, what
Yeah.
else? What else do you want it for? So I just felt like one way of communicating with people the importance of what you buy is to also remind them that like even these types of things you can make eco-conscious purchases. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to just be like your clothes or your bags or the type of soap that you use or the type of makeup that you use. It can be the all the way down to the pots and pans that you use. You can make
Mhm.
eco-conscious choices
Mhm.
um, without sacrificing an aesthetic that you're trying to go for in your home.
Right.
And we call this is our version of the modern the modern mason jar,
Yeah.
basically, um, because it still has the suction and the great lid to it. But one of the things that I really like, that I was really intentional about with the designing of this, is that you can't see the silicone.
Mhm.
You know how, like, on a lot of jars, you get them
Yeah.
and they like have the bamboo lid, but you can always see the plastic.
Yeah.
I just don't like that. I'm like, if I'm going to pay for something, I want it to be like pretty and not
Yeah.
show like plastic in it.
Yeah.
So that was we had them intentionally create kind of a lip to it to put the silicone in, so you don't even see that. So it just kind of has a pretty presentation all around.
Yeah.
So you
I
can like
love
look at it and be like, "That's great for the planet, but it's pretty."
Yeah, I love it. And I love how you use silicone in it too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We found a manufacturer that hand blows them all. It takes a little bit of time to get them to us at the end, but it's totally worth it. And the type of glass that it is, which I didn't even know that there were different types of glass. But borosilicate glass is actually the type of glass that scientists use in all of their experiments. Hospitals use it for much of their medical grade things. And fun fact, they dispose of nuclear waste in borosilicate glass because it's such a dense glass that pores can't get into it and pores can't leave from it. So you can store nuclear waste in it and not be concerned that it's going to implode because of outside gases getting into it and like
Yeah.
exploding it. So I thought that was really cool. And that the the reason that matters for you is that when you put flour in here, it's not going to go stale.
Yeah.
Or when you put coffee beans in here, they're not going to go stale. They're going to last longer because they're not receiving air. I mean, unless you're like leaving the lid off,
Right.
user
Right.
error. But
Right.
if you're like keeping the lid on, you can keep things in there very fresh for much longer.
Right.
So
And there's no chemicals leaching in it either from the glass, like if you were to store it
right.
in plastic.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
I love it.
Yep. So it's a fun product. I like it. I have a couple other up my sleeve, but I'm gonna like pause on the products and just let these two kind of be my vocal point for right now, just to kind of show kind of a contrast between like something very user friendly, like produce bags that you just keep in your car
Hmm.
and take with you to the store, versus something pretty for your home. Like they're a different price point, of course, but like it's also to show you like you can do this very easily at different levels of commitment.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be a huge burden on you. And our bags, our produce bags, it's a set of 8, and There's 6 that are mesh, so they're like, see-through. I'll grab a set of those in a minute, but they're double stitched because I was finding from a lot of them either they're nylon,
Mhm.
so they're like kind of chintzy, and like they don't biodegrade at the end, or there are like a cotton, but they can't withstand a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And I legitimately buy 10 to 15 avocados a week
Yeah.
because we really eat a lot. So I was like, if it can hold my avocados, it is a sustainably built product. And it does. It holds all my avocados. My mom even put them in her cabinet hanging up with all of her potatoes. And there was something about that was like good for your potatoes. And I don't remember what it was. And I haven't done it myself yet. But I mean, she's had no problems with it. No, even like stretching or anything like that.
Yeah.
And there's 3 different sizes, and then all of them have just a wooden toggle that tightens them closed,
Mhm.
so they stay really well affixed. But all of that biodegrades. And then there are 2 muslin ones, a large one and a small one, and that's just a close knit fabric.
Mhm.
So you can put flowers in it. It might get a little puffy, but like grains and seeds and nuts are really great for that. I I kind of keep forgetting that you can't throw them in the dryer because I throw everything in the dryer because it's raw cotton, so it'll
Yeah.
shrink.
Oh, yeah.
So the ones that I have done that with are really great. I've used them for cold brew coffee in the summer. You just use them as like a strainer, like instead of a cheesecloth, you can use them as a strainer for that. It's
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
So they're all about it. They're pretty great.
Awesome. I love this. This is so cool. So what are some other benefits that you've seen going into this, and especially like changing your habits in food too, like with your daughter? So because obviously you've changed your mindset around the
Yeah.
entire thing, and what are the benefits that you've seen?
Well, there's a lot of benefits that I've seen. Health wise, I I know what is good for me and what isn't. I was just telling my husband this morning. I was like, I gained a little weight because of the holidays because I like allowed so many things into our home that we don't normally, and we hosted um, family, and it's just a sweet time. And I'm trying to, as I homeschool, remember there's just as much importance behind making memories as there is behind like watching what you eat. And because I have all girls, I'm very intentional about the narrative that I give them around food so
Oh,
that there's no miscommunication about like food being the problem. It's more having self control and a
right.
healthy balance of self control. Um, but with the girls, especially, all my girls have eczema to some
Mhm.
degree. And I can always tell when we're not eating something well because they'll have flare ups always
Yeah.
behind the knees or under their lips or on their arms. And if I just cut dairy out for like a week
Uh-huh.
and up the amount of vegetables that we eat instead of graham crackers for snack time, it goes away just like that.
Yeah.
Um, so I can always tell when we're eating well and when we're not. Another thing that I started doing that was really important for me, again, because we're a family on the go all the time, is meal planning.
Mhm.
I found this really cool company called Prep Dish. And I'm like, I just use them. I'm not like I've signed up to be an affiliate with them, but I'm not. I'm just saying this because it's such a great resource and I love them.
Yeah.
I love to cook. I love to chop, but I've had no energy to be creative. So if it's up to me, we'll just eat like spaghetti every night, which isn't healthy. Um, I mean, it is on zoodles, but my
Yeah.
husband will not eat zoodles. He will have his pasta. So you kind of have to find the balance. So I've also started using this thing called Prep Dish, and it's really inexpensive. She basically just gives you your shopping list and
Mm.
then a rundown of like step 1, turn on the oven. Step 2, throw your potatoes in the oven. Step 3, chop your onions. They're going to go in these meals. Step 4, chop these things up, store them in a bag, throw salt and pepper and olive oil on them.
Mhm.
And so I've started doing that. And the reason that that's been really good is because you can choose between different diets like gluten free, paleo, and keto. And then I just literally have to create all of that stuff. It even has like snacks. So if I just spend one afternoon doing all that meal prep, our whole week is set for us for food. So if I have the meal prep done for the week, and if I have our snacks already chopped up for the
Mhm.
week, then we wind up being a lot wiser with what we put in our bodies. And then we're not thinking about food the whole day. Because what happens when you eat high sugar content foods, you're just thinking about food all day because they plummet your blood sugar so quickly after eating it. and then you're hungry again. And
Right.
my middle child is like always hungry, always. And she will eat all the bananas and all the tangerines and all the apples. And I'm like, yeah, that's great, honey, but it's just going to turn to sugar and you're going to be hungry in 20 minutes. So
Yeah.
eat like some carrots, have an egg, like you need to fill your belly up with other things. Um, so I think that it's been helpful thinking about that for them. I also try and buy organic whenever I can. Um, when we're on a tighter budget, I'll stick more to the Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen,
Mhm.
which are like the 15 that you should always buy organic, like berries and things like that. And the things you don't have to worry so much. The Dirty Dozen can be, like bananas because they have a covering, or potatoes or squash. You don't have to worry
Mhm.
about them as much. But we have noticed a big difference in that. And I think another part of that for us is my husband and I both grew up overseas.
Yeah.
Um, we both grew up in South America, but I grew up in the tropics. So I grew up with fresh fruits and vegetables all the time. And when we moved to the States, it was really hard for me to adjust to a place that has seasonal foods.
Yeah.
And so I would buy based off of what I was used to growing up. And I even in eating fruits and vegetables, I was still like gaining a ridiculous amount of weight. But it
Mhm.
was because I was buying kiwi in the middle of winter, and that's not like their high season. And so I was learning a bit about, like, just because it's available in your grocery store and it's a fruit or a vegetable doesn't mean it's actually good for you. It probably has some type of chemical in it
Uh-huh.
that's affecting your body. Um, so if I need to buy something for a recipe, let's say that's off season, I'll be more intentional about buying that organic too, because I know that it'll still be better for my body as I digest it. Um, and that's just a huge part for us, is like eating like we did when we lived overseas, where grains are processed differently, bread is different. Our
Right.
like, you like live in a different country and you just walk around looking like rock stars, and then you come back to the States where everything is processed, and like you're like, why is my pepper even processed too? This is so frustrating.
Yeah.
Um, so we've been really intentional about that. Within our home, we we are like all the families who are like, hey, every light in the house is on and we're all in the same room. And I'm really not sure how to get it across to you to turn all the lights off as you leave a room. So I don't have a solution for that one yet, but we're working on it.
Yeah.
Um, we have small kids. I think part of the way that we're teaching them how to be more mindful of their habits, that for us as adults is like, hey, this isn't an eco-conscious choice. Also, it's not great for my budget. Is by talking to them about it in an exchange of goods. Like, in
Mhm.
order to have the lights on, we have to work so that we can have money so that we can do those things.
Ah.
And not in a way that like guilt trips them, but also shows them like, this isn't just mutually exclusive. Just because you're alive doesn't mean you have electricity. Like,
Right.
it is something that has to be bought. So we do talk with them about why we work, why we make money, um, what that is going to pay for. Sometimes you have to say no to things. And then even when we're out shopping, like, I'm with my girls all the time. So, um, especially around the toys thing, they'll like want a toy and I'm like, that's just plastic you're going to throw away.
Right.
We're not going to do that. If you want to earn money, if you want to like earn your own money to buy that, then you can, because there'll be more akin to actually play with that item if they've had to do the hard work to earn it, than if I just buy it for them and then it becomes just another
Right.
piece of trash.
Right.
So I think part of teaching my kids how to be eco-conscious and being eco-conscious myself has to do with like, well, what is this going to solve? What is this not going to solve? And what am I exchanging in order to get this thing?
Right.
Because I'm having to exchange something at some point. And that's been a helpful way to think about it. And then externally, one of the things we started doing with our kids is cleaning up our neighborhood. One of the methods, even in our homeschooling that we do, talks about how for kids 10 and under, the most important thing you can do with them is be outside. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much importance to being outside. And so one of the resources would even suggest like spend as much time doing schoolwork as outside.
Mhm.
And then also within your structure of educating your children, they should be doing some type of service project for 30 minutes a week.
Mhm.
And when they're younger, it goes, it's like a funnel. So it's like, it starts micro where you're serving in your home by doing
Mhm.
some chores in your home, and then you're serving in your neighborhood, whether it's cleaning up trash or helping elderly people get their mail. And then slowly, as they grow older and grow in responsibility, you can give them more independent um, ways of serving others and
Yeah.
serving their community. And just by creating this habit of like serving others, it's inconvenient. We would love to be at home, or we'd love to actually go for a walk instead of stop and clean up bottles or whatever. But it teaches them that the world belongs to them too. And if
Yeah.
they want to see it look better, they're going to have to do it themselves in a lot of cases. Like, you can't wait for other people to do the work that you could easily do yourself.
Yeah.
Um, so by just slowly teaching them to do that, talking about litter, talking about what biodegrades, what doesn't, what composts, what doesn't, you have all these conversations because you're out there cleaning up trash. Like,
Yeah.
we're cleaning up this can because it's going to stay this way for the next million years. Like, we got to put it we're going to get dispose of it properly.
Yeah.
Oh, that banana peel, don't worry about that. That's fine. Some squirrels will come and eat that. That's okay.
Yeah.
So just kind of having that education talk with them. But a lot of it comes down to, um, as parents, our job is to educate our children and communicate with them and not expect any establishment to do that for us
Right.
because they want to model their parents. And how can we do that where we're not feeling guilty about it all the time, and it can be fun, like almost gamify it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful how you're raising your children. I love it so much.
Thanks.
And
Thanks.
you just clearly like thought of like all of these different ways to go about looking at things, and I love it.
Yeah. I think one of the impacts for us, and the reason we even moved into the homeschooling thing, which I guess it could tie up to a whole thing, but ultimately it was like, as my oldest was going into second grade, and I loved her school. Her elementary school was wonderful. She started going there in kindergarten, and then she got diagnosed and didn't go back till the end of first grade. And they stuck by her the whole time. They did fundraisers, fantastic school. But they're also required to do so many things that they would prefer spending their time doing other things with. And so even by second grade, they're spending like something like 2 to 4 weeks a year just teaching them how to take standardized testing.
Yeah.
And then it just gets more and more time. Like by fourth grade, they're spending 4 to 6 weeks a year practicing standardized testing and preparing for standardized testing. And that is eliminating so many opportunities for children to learn skills that actually will be helpful for them, like in the future. Like, if we're just teaching them how to take tests by the time they're 12, we're in exchange not teaching them a whole lot of other things.
Right.
So what if I don't have to worry about standardized testing because I'm homeschooling, and I don't have to worry about that till high school? What therefore can I exchange those hours for? It can
Yeah.
be in service, it can be in reading, it can be in handwriting, it can be in a service project, it can be in just being out in nature. Kids aren't going to learn how to respect and care for nature if they don't respect and care for nature.
Yeah.
Like, they have to be in it, like
Yeah.
they have to be out and play in it and wonder in it and watch um, ants carry leaves and
Yeah.
climb up into trees and fall and break their arms so that they respect that gravity is a thing. Like, they're not going to learn respect by you just being like, hey, don't hit that tree. Like, you're disrespecting that tree.
Yeah.
One of the books I read, which is one of my favorites that I would recommend to anybody, is called Last Child in the Woods.
Hmm.
I can't remember the guy's name. Oh, I just had it. I just returned it. Anyway, really, really great book. And one of the things he says is that we've been stigmatized to believe that nature is the problem.
Hmm.
But how can we expect children to care for our planet in the future if they also see so much fear around it?
Hmm.
And one of the big problems is our neighborhoods are exchanging natural play areas for playgrounds.
Hmm.
So it's like standards of play instead of risk play. And secondly, especially when you're like in HOA areas, uh, kids are being told they can't put up tree houses or they
Yeah.
can't climb trees, but it basically is like, you can't deface that one tree or explore that one tree and be in it and feel it sway and feel it grow and hear the leaves rustle because you're defacing it. But when we built this neighborhood, we destroyed over 5,000 trees to build this neighborhood. But you're the problem, little child.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's what's happening all over the place. It's like the problem doesn't have to do with the individual child. In fact, if you let the children play in the woods and by creeks and by fishing and just, I mean, we live across from a cell phone tower, but they're never going to build anything there. And it's like 4 acres of land. So
Mhm.
I let the kids go play over there all the time.
Yeah.
And they like make puddles and they're petting cats. I don't know. They might be feral cats. It's fine.
Yeah.
We're close to a hospital, but like they're playing in branches. There's like a big pit and they like play in that. Like they're outside playing and I can just hear them singing. I have all girls, so it's a lot of Frozen soundtrack, but I can just hear them across the street just singing or playing. I did get them a hammock so they can go set up a hammock between some trees whenever they want and take some books when it's nice out. And I don't have to worry about them. And they're exploring and playing. They've traveled all over the world in
Mhm.
those 4 acres. And that's how my kids are going to learn how to care for the planet because
Yeah.
their play area is going to get destroyed by
Yeah.
junk and they're going to clean it up because they're like,
Yeah.
this is not how this is meant to be. And they'll take that mindset on wherever they go.
Yeah.
And that's important. That's how we grow our kids.
I love it. I love it. I love it. My sister and I grew up that way too. We were on the edge of woods when I grew up. I grew up in Oregon, and
Mm,
we were always outside in the woods. Always.
yeah.
And we would pack a lunch and then we would go
Yeah.
and play in the woods and be gone all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really helpful, I think, in line of that, which it's not really on topic, but I think it is important for any parents listening who are like, but that's scary. Like someone could steal your child. One of the other things that he talked about in this book was how fear averse we as parents have become. When
Mhm.
he interviewed classes between second grade all the way through high school, kids were like, oh, we can't go outside and play unless it's like within eyesight because our parents are afraid something will happen to us. It's not that the kids are afraid of it, it's that the parents are afraid of it. When statistically 96% of childhood abductions happen by a family friend or a
Mhm.
family member.
Mhm.
And so it's someone known to the family. It's like less than even 4% of the time, it's just someone plucking a child off the street.
Right.
But because of media and TV shows and fiction, that's what we've come to believe. And it is a hard exercise. Like it's been a hard exercise for me, especially with daughters,
Right.
to give them the liberty to play independently.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that you have no eyes on them,
Right.
obviously. Like when they play outside, I have a window open if I'm not sitting on my porch, you
Right.
know? Um, but a good example is we were doing this one day over the summer, and I think I had to come into the house for something. No, I was sitting across the street with the girls. We were doing school on a picnic blanket across the street, and my middle had to go to the bathroom. So she came back to the house
Mhm.
and crossed back over to us while we were sitting on the thing. And a woman had just passed by in her SUV.
Mhm.
And so she saw my middle cross the street and she stopped and she's like, there's a kid just running around. And then she saw me and she was like, oh, hey, I wasn't going to steal your kid. I just saw this kid like running around. And I was like, that's fine. And that was helpful for me because I'm still in this journey of discovering this and learning about this, to be like, this person in this enormous black suburban
Mhm.
stopped and was like, oh my gosh, there's a kid in the street. Like, where does she belong?
Mhm.
Just to show that like not all humanity is depraved in that
Right.
horrid way.
Mhm.
Um, and we may be over stigmatizing our children to believe that and not letting them have this like beautiful freedom in childhood. And like I said before, by being out in nature, they learn cause and effect. They learn consequences for actions. They learn, in fact, one of the things that he said that I thought was really interesting is that by allowing children to play in nature, you give them the ability to hone their own senses. So
Mhm.
when they are in a situation that's unsafe, they can actually perceive it more than if they hadn't had opportunities to stretch those senses on their own.
Oh,
So
wow,
they
that's
can
really
sense unhealthy adults or unhealthy other people that may not be safe for them much faster because they've had to rely on their senses and their own gut feeling so much more by being in nature and having to do those types of things on their own, which I thought
Yeah.
was incredible.
That is really super interesting. I've never I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was a connection there.
Yeah, I didn't either. I was like, oh, but that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
When I think on my own life, I was also outdoors a lot. My parents lived in the rainforest for a while. And so, like, my first memories are in a jungle
Yeah.
all by myself, just like watching beetles and like tarantulas, which was awful. Um, but just being independent all the time and being in a country where I didn't speak the language natively
Mhm.
for a little while. So, having to perceive when something is safe around me and when isn't from a
Mhm.
very early age. So, I've always been cognizant of that, and as I'm older, I'm realizing, oh, that's a skill that I learned that many of my peers haven't learned.
Yeah.
um so reading that, I was like, oh, maybe that's why. Hmm,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm reflecting on myself too, and I
Right.
feel like I feel like I think that's true for me too. In a lot of circumstances, I think that I have seen the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's really cool.
it's learning a lot.
Yeah.
Homeschooling isn't really for the kids, it's for the parents. We just learn a lot. It's like, oh, I could almost be on Jeopardy at this point. Just kidding. Jeopardy for fifth graders, maybe.
Right? I haven't even seen that for so long. I don't even is it still on?
No, Alex Trebek just passed away. I
Oh,
think
that's right.
they just finished it up. But it was on Netflix for a little bit, like the best of Jeopardy, and that became our like nighttime TV for a while, just to help us go to bed.
Oh, that's
It's
so
awful.
cool. So I don't know, we've answered all of my questions, but I guess one of the last things that I might ask, we've talked a lot about this already, but have you had any other challenges that you are facing or you have faced? I know that
Ooh,
we've kind of touched on this quite a bit already.
yeah, that's a great question. Um,
Maybe something you want to attack in the future.
yeah, I think one of the things I have reflected on in starting this business is casting a clear, realistic vision for what I can actually do. And I touched on that earlier. We just launched our product in March of last year, and when we launched it, the pandemic had just hit. But like everybody, we are like, it'll be fine in like a month or two.
Mhm.
So let's just get this started. And everybody's taking a chill pill from school and stuff anyway. Um, but then over the summer, when it quickly changed for us, and because of Amelie's story and not wanting her to have to go to school wearing masks all the time because she's already done that, um, we were like, oh, okay, so our priority is now going to be homeschooling. So what was really difficult about that was I'm a planner and I plan to go as planned. And I thought that I was going to have all this time to really develop Honeydew well and create a big presence for it. And that hasn't happened because I've
Mhm.
needed to shift my priority to my children.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that I chose well and I chose wisely. But what's been hard is trying to figure out how to feed what I need as a person, as an adult, which is to be creating something, and to do something useful for my family, while also prioritizing these little years for my children, because I'm very cognizant that these little years are going to go by in a blip. Like, I legitimately can't believe I almost have a 9-year-old. I don't know how that happened. It's ridiculous. We've had to talk about so many adult things in the last like 6 months that I'm like, I'm not qualified for this. No one told me how to have these conversations. I am not the adult in this room. And then I look around and I'm like, I'm the adult in this room. Oh, wow. I don't know how we got here. I apologize already in advance for all of the bad advice. Um, but I have had to I have I've been grateful that while I'm still small, I have the ability to pivot well,
Mhm.
and to kind of find what works well for me within the framework of being eco-conscious, because that's still really important to me.
Mhm.
Um, but like I said earlier, I have a whole catalog of products that I want to release. I don't think that that's realistic for me right now. I think sticking with the two that I have is probably the healthiest choice for me, and moving more into, I'm actually going to be releasing this week my journal. So
Mhm.
I'm keeping kind of a blog and a journal that people can use as a resource on. It'll be a mixture of recipes or, gift guides. I've been working a lot on creating eco-friendly gift guides for her, for the home, for him, and for kids.
Mhm.
That's actually stuff like that you want, not
Yeah.
just like the for her one has 0 kitchen items in it. It's just like legitimate female gifts that everybody would want to get that happen to
Right.
be eco-conscious and do not involve the kitchen or the bathroom unless it's something spa. Like I couldn't, even in just like trying to find stuff over Christmas for people, I was like, I don't want to buy them produce bags. Like I sell produce bags. I don't even want to give that to that's like condescending for Christmas.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a stocking stuffer, that's different. But like, I want to give them like something like a pretty shirt, but that's like good for the planet.
Yeah.
Um, so just creating a place to build kind of an affiliate market, but also share a lot of what I've learned and our journey and our story, because I know so many families who are in the same exact place where they're like, I really want to care about the planet and I want to teach my kids how to do that,
Yeah.
but none of it feels sustainable. Like
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this. So I've had to um, prayerfully move in that direction and try and figure out how to do that well, and put the appropriate amount of hours into it instead of becoming the workaholic that I can be, and
Yeah.
constantly having to like remind myself of my current purpose. Um, so that has been hard because I've always been a worker bee, and I've always um, been a businesswoman, and um, motherhood was kind of a crash on all of those personal plans that I had. But it's been the best type of crash. I'm very grateful for it. I'm
Yeah.
grateful for my kids, and I love them, and they're hilarious all the
Yeah.
time. Like I'm so thankful that I chose to prioritize that over money and work.
Yeah.
Um, they're the best place for my energy to be.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. And you talking about that journal, it reminds me of something that I created. And I actually have to run and go get it too.
Good times.
But I really want to show you.
Show me, show me, show me.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, you do that. I'm going to get the bag so I can show you that.
So
So show me yours.
um
Show and tell.
I too, like, I had this big thing, like I wanted to create something that was um I didn't know what it was. I was like, there's clearly a mindset change when you are trying to move in this direction. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then like I just said, I'm gonna create a coloring book.
Yes.
I made a coloring book.
Oh, that's cool.
I wrote on it here because I'm gonna put it in the vacation rental, but it has like affirmations in it. Like, I don't know,
Oh,
here's
cool.
one. I am a local shopper.
Oh, I love that.
And
That's so cool.
yeah, it has like a bunch of affirmations in it. And then like it has here's another page.
Oh, I love it.
So
Yeah.
together we can change the world. Anyway, it has like eco-conscious affirmations and like plastic tips and like carbon footprint tips, and then it has a couple of plant-based recipes.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, and it's on Amazon as well. So
God bless Amazon.
yeah, it's kind of cool. Amazon is like this love-hate thing for me.
Yeah. 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 Someone put up at Christmas something like super anti-Amazon. And I was like, hey, like 53% of businesses on Amazon are small businesses. And
Mhm.
I'm one of them. Please don't bash them. I need
Yeah.
people to see it. And my husband and I were actually just talking about this because I have been back and forth. Like, do I just do my own Shopify? Do I try and take advantage of Amazon? Because you have more eyes, but you have more competition. And ultimately, at this point, the cost that it is for me to use them is kind of mutually exclusive because they give me all of my reports. They help
Mhm.
me file my taxes. They do the SEO for me to get my product where it needs to be, as long as I'm putting in a little bit of effort as well. So it still is a tricky thing And then on top of that, for the products I have in the warehouse, in their warehouses, they ship them and send them out. And you can apply to be an EcoConscious provider too, so that they put your stuff in EcoConscious products, you know. Plus they have more access to recycled boxes than I'll ever have, because they like manufacture their own ones.
Yeah.
So they're able to make a greater impact in that way, that I'm like, you know, it's going to be more cost effective. And right now I'm a small business, I have to think about that. I would love for everything to be like, even when I was looking at packaging for these guys, I ship them myself because they're glass, and it's fewer hands shipping it myself than sending it to an Amazon warehouse that has to get sent to other distribution centers that goes out to other people. So I just thought it'd be safer if I just ship them myself. But in investigating ways to ship them well, it can get really expensive really fast, between like the corrugated boxes I have plus the boxes that they're in. And then luckily, I found more packing peanuts than I'll ever need for the rest of my life, but it was pretty cheap. But they have these sucrose. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Cellulose,
Yeah.
sucrose peanuts. So they dissolve in water.
Yeah.
So I've started using those for them, but just like, you know, my ability to resource biodegradable packaging is a little bit more limited than like Amazon. So I have to kind of be picky about what I choose for that. These are the bags. This is the little handy thing that I meant to have.
Oh, cool. Yes.
They come with this little wrapper, and then this guy inside just tells some tips and tricks.
Yeah.
And then the bags themselves are really great. And actually, I mean, they're bags, so they can be used for whatever, you know. You don't have to just use them for produce bags. I actually have, this has been kind of a fun thing to discover. Several of my friends have boys, all boys, and several of my friends have sent me pictures of their little boys with their toys in them and holding them over their shoulder,
Yeah.
because they're just like vagabonds, and they're like, check out my trains. And I just thought that was really cool, because I was like, you know, I have all girls, so I have no end of purses and bags and backpacks. But boys get like cool backpacks with dinosaurs on them, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And so like all these little boys are carrying their trains and their cars around in my bags, and I just love it. It makes me happy, because it's like they're color coded by their size is color coded. So the blue are small, and then orange or peach are medium, and then mint is large. So, you know, they're fairly gender neutral. I don't know. It's pretty cool. So these are the small ones, and you can tell they're just like super thick.
Yeah.
Like I can like really stretch on them and nothing changes. And they're double stitched even at the seams.
Yeah.
So they are really, really durable. And then all of them have a wood toggle that's just lightly coated with a non-toxic coating. And they just like hold things really fast. I also used these recently on a trip that I went for my like organizing my, this is just showing how OCD I am, but organizing my outfits by outfit, because I do it because if I don't, then I'm going to overpack and have like 7 shirts for a 2-nighter.
Yeah.
So I did that recently, and I was like, oh, I felt really handy. And then the these are the muslin ones, just for perspective. So they're just a thick, you know, cotton.
Yeah.
Great for anything you want to hold things in that you don't want to slip through little holes.
Yeah.
So those are my other babies.
So cool.
And they all also have the tear weight on them. And that's just like the weight of the actual bag. It doesn't really matter most places, but especially if you go into one of those, like you fill it up on your own stores, they'll ask you the tear weight, because then they'll take that weight off of your total cost. So you're not paying for the weight of the bag, which is pretty cool.
Do you have one of those stores locally near you?
Not yet. That is a goal I have for this year. I mean, we do have a refill store here that opened up. I feel like it opened up early last year. The tricky thing about Nashville is we had a tornado 5 days before the world shut down because of COVID. So, and that store is in that neighborhood. So I'm not sure if they got shut down, they got hit by the tornado, and then COVID hit. And then those are the type of stores that couldn't open for a while because they were still trying to figure COVID stuff out. So I'm not sure if it's opened up again.
Yeah.
But there are some local coffee shops and other like very earth friendly places here in Nashville that I'm hoping to connect with this year and like see if they'll store
Yeah.
some in their place, which would be
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it. I love it. I
Thank
love it. Love
you.
it. Thank you so much for talking to me. Oh, this is
Thank
so
you,
good.
Katie. I appreciate it.